It's Dr. Cassie Smith, and welcome to Back to the Basics, a simple approach to health in the modern world. I appreciate you taking the time to join me today and hopefully learn ways that could help you improve your health. The modern world has left little time to focus on health and wellness. I hope to give you some quick and simple ways to be well and live your best life. Welcome back to this week's episode of Back to the Basics. I'm your host, Dr. Cassie Smith, and I'm going to do something a little bit different this week. I have had some amazing guests on my podcast, but it has been a really long time since I just kind of talked to you guys on my own. And since we are ending this year in 2024, I typically do something every year where I go through and I figure out what I'm grateful for. I kind of recap and rehash the year. And I just try to figure out what was good, learn things from the year, and then do some brainstorming and looking forward to the next year. It has been a wild year for Modern Endocrine on so many levels, professional, personal. And so I thought I would just go through the year with you guys and just kind of talk about what happened, what Modern Endocrine did, what we're planning on doing. I'm going to talk to you guys about what I'm grateful for. I'm going to talk to you about maybe some mistakes I made. And so I'm just going to kind of hash out the year with you. And my husband may traject a few times and kind of help me. But the way I typically do this, and I really recommend that people do this. So at the end of every year, go back to your camera roll, go back to January and just start looking through your pictures. You'll find things you forgot you even did. Make a list of something that you did every month. And then at the end of it, like I have my list I'm going to talk to you guys about. What are you grateful for? What do you want to change in the next year? What are your goals? And I call this, thankfully, to somebody that I was introduced to this year in February, Coach Mike Burke. I'm going to call this my living in the gain and not the gap. So my, really looking at all the things I gained in 2024 instead of looking in the gap as to like what I still want to do, so that I really can see all the things that I accomplished this year and it will help drive me to next year. And I also want you guys to know, like, I have a lot of people who reach out to me, a lot of patients that are upset, like, why are you making these decisions? What did you do? And so I'm just going to kind of go over that with you guys. And I'm just going to let you know, like, what I did this year, what I plan on doing next year, and maybe you guys can do something cool like this. So we started out January of 2024 in Cabo. There was some stuff on social media. Some of you guys may not have been following me at that point. I started out 2024 with not a lot of social media followers. So my social media did pretty well in 2024 at the beginning. It's kind of tapered off here towards the end of the year. I have not been doing as much content because I've been busy. I'm going to tell you why, but we're coming back for you in 2025 social media. But in January of 2024, we were in Cabo with some friends. So we went to a house that we love in Cabo. We had a bunch of friends there. We had so much fun for the new year. We were there for a week. My social media guy came. We did some content. I've had some people still comment about some beach pictures that we took. So you can go back and check out the social media if you would like for that. But we started off the year in an awesome place in Cabo, just relaxing, having some great needed rest time, my husband and I, with our friends. It was super exciting. Came back after the first week of January and then went right to work. So I was still teaching for BioT at the beginning of the year, which is a pellet company. I was doing training every month in Dallas. So I did some of that in January as well. Just kind of living, wasn't really thinking about a lot of changes for Modern Endocrine. I actually was pretty content at the beginning of 2024. So that's always a scary place to be, scary, comfortable place to be. And I was definitely comfortable and content at the beginning of January 24. I had a bunch of lofty goals for 24, but they were just very broad and not super defined. And so I went into 2024 thinking, 2023 was okay and I'm comfortable. And so I guess I'm just going to sit here and we're going to go for it. Little did I know that God had a lot in store for me, and it wasn't contentment. But I started out the year very content, like, hey, I've got this practice, it's doing okay. But what I will tell you that I knew in January of 2024 was that I was working too hard. I was kind of at my breaking point. I was seeing a lot of patients. Things weren't working how I wanted them to work. Medicine is hard because when you're seeing patients in an insurance model and you're trying to provide really good care, it is basically impossible. And so I was torn every night when I went to bed. It was just like I had this nagging in me because I spent 20 minutes with a patient and I wasn't getting reimbursed for that money. I wasn't getting reimbursed for that time. I always ran behind. We were overbooked. I couldn't help people how I wanted to help them because insurance wouldn't allow it. Like they said, you need to see people in 10 or 15 minutes. This is all we're paying you. I don't care if you talk to them about diet. I don't care if you talk to them about exercise. I don't care if you make them well. I'm giving you X amount of money, see them and get them out of your clinic. And that's just not who I was. That's not how modern endocrine was. I had been practicing not like that, but it was just getting worse and worse with reimbursements. And so although I was content in January, I was in a kind of a bad place personally because I went to bed every night thinking, man, I could have taken better care of those people, but I don't know, like I got to pay my bills, right? I have these people that work for me. I have to be able to provide them with a life and income. And I have to be able to, the practice has to be able to be sustained or I can't see anyone. And so although I was content, I was kind of in this weird place. And so I just kind of went along in January. I didn't really think anything about it. And then February came along and I was getting really burnt out. I was getting really tired. Kind of happens to me every year this time of year. I mean, it's cold, it's dark. And it hit me in February, like, man, I just don't know how much longer I can do this. Like people really need help. I know how to help them. I understand how your gut and your hormones and all these things connect. And I'm just not able to do that in the model that I'm in. So I started kind of thinking, like maybe there's a way I can do this better. Maybe. So I kind of just had some ideas, but again, I'm very content, right? So my husband starts following this guy online named Coach Michael Burke. He's a motivational coach guy. And he shows me a few of his videos and he has a book. And my husband says, maybe you should read this book. So I read this book about, I don't remember which one I read first. Maybe it was Becoming a Person of Interest but I thought he's a good coach. Like he makes you want more out of yourself. He makes you pull things out of yourself. It was Prey Drive. I think I read his book about Prey Drive and it really it started pulling stuff out of me. Like, man, I really want more. I want better for my patients. I want better for myself. But then I was like, but I'm kind of content. And so then my husband does what he always does and pushes my buttons. And he said, Coach Burke has this couples retreat with his wife, Natalie, in Florida this month. I think we should go. And I'm like, okay, what are we going to do? What are we going to go learn about, And it was a couples retreat and it was called Living with a Monster. And the point of it was that sometimes you're married to somebody who's kind of like the monster, who's very driven, who's very ambitious. And the retreat was supposed to help the person that's married to the monster, help that monster drive them and push them and help them realize the things that they want to do and be able to do it in unison. So like as a couple. So I kind of looked at my husband and I said, well, are you calling me a monster? And he said, well, no, but maybe it's a good idea that we go. And I kind of agreed with that because my husband helps me a lot with our business at Modern Endocrine. And, as part of a marriage and a good relationship, you want to be able to work together and to support each other and love each other. And so we were kind of trying to find out, how can Rob interact with Modern Endocrine? How can he help me? What can we use for his strengths to really help the business? And so I said, okay, fine, let's go to this conference, right? In February. I was going to have to take a couple of days off work, but we were going to be in Florida. So I was like, all right, let's do it, right? So we go to this conference in Florida. And if anyone listening to this is a couple and you are married to a high functioning person, somebody you may consider a monster, I would highly recommend that you check out Coach Burke and his wife Natalie's program called Living with a Monster. It was phenomenal. And Coach Burke just really has a way, again, of pulling things out of you. And Natalie is so good. She's a great host. So we went and we learned so much, just so many really great things about why I am driven, how I am driven, how he can be helpful to me, he being Rob, the things he can do to help compliment me, but not butt heads with me. Because a lot of times when you're married to somebody driven, it can cause a lot of friction and a lot of just chaos. And so, there were some great things we took away from that. But one of the things Coach Burke taught me that there's a couple that I will never forget, has changed my life. It all goes to zero at midnight, meaning that no matter what you do every day, as an entrepreneur, as a person with purpose, as somebody trying to make the world a better place, you have to remember that it all goes to zero at midnight and you have to do it again the next day. because some people get content, right? And that's where I was content. And I don't know if he knew that and he pulled that out of me, if he could tell, but I left that conference like, man, I'm really content. And there are way better things I need to be doing in the world for people. And I need to get to doing them. And I need to utilize my husband to help me do that. So that was one of them, because in February of 2024, I didn't have this podcast. There was no podcast. Cassie had thought about doing a podcast. Cassie had not done it. And my social media, like I was doing some social media, but nothing like I am now. So Coach Burke pulled that out of me. It all goes to zero at midnight. The other thing he taught me that I will never forget is you really, really need to live in the gain and not the gap. I was so guilty of that. When he said that, I was like, what? Like blew my mind. And his point to that was, instead of always thinking about all the things that you want to do, which is me, right? Serial entrepreneur, want to change the world, want to help millions of people, want to leave this planet way better than it is now. I have so many ideas all the time. And I'm always like, I was always just like nagging on myself, like, man, I want to do this and I want to do this and I want to do this. And I can't ever get everything done. And he had this lesson where he taught us, when you get in those headspaces, I want you to list everything that you actually have accomplished for the year, part of why we're doing this, or the month or the week. And it's okay to think about like, man, I want to do these other things and make another column of the things you're working on. But what you got to remember is live in the gain. What have you done? Because you forget about those things. And it is such a powerful, powerful place. And so when you get in these bad headspaces, when you can see the gain and live in that, like, look how far I've come, then that gap, although it's there and it's something you're shooting for, it's not like a negative experience. And so he taught me this gain versus gap trick. And I've done it so many times. I have this notebook now. He would probably be proud, but I have this notebook that I take and I brain dump in it, because he taught me that. He taught me how to brain map, like whenever you have ideas, how you put them in there. So I do that a lot in the morning. It's really helped me with my book that I'm working on. But I also have this section where I do gain and gap. And so in February, I did that, and it was awesome. Like, we went on this retreat and I came back in February and I was like, dang it. So that content feeling that nothing's going on, nothing's changing, it's about to change. I know it is. So he lit this little fire under me, and then he kind of was like pushing at me after I came back. Cassie, you need a coach. You need to start doing these things. Like, you have it in you to be great. You have it in you to do different things. And I knew he was right, but I was like, I don't want to be that busy again, or I don't know how, or I'm scared. I don't have the right people. There's so many things that go through your head, but I did have all these ideas, right? And so we get back, it's the end of February. I'm like, oh, okay, go into March. Coach Burke's still kind of like in my head all the time. Like, you need to do better things. You need to do bigger things. You need to, And so one day I was just like, okay, I'm going to make a brain dump of everything that I want modern endocrine to be. Right. And so I make this brain dump. I still have it. And I was almost in tears when I was done. It was like, I don't want insurance to dictate how I take care of patients. I want to have this amazing facility in Oklahoma City where people can come and actually get better with all these therapies in one place that they couldn't get anywhere else. I want a red light bed, and I want cold plunge, and I want to be able to offer people ozone, and I want to talk to them about their gut, and I want a nutritionist, and I want this just beautiful building. So all of that was in my brain dump. And then I was like, I really want to do a podcast. I'd want to do it for a long time, because I just hear people say just ridiculous things on the internet and online that are not true. And it frustrates me, because I don't want people to be like, oh, I should just listen to that person because they have 1 million followers. A lot of the crap you hear is not valid, good, health conscious information. And I was like, I can tell people more intelligent things than that, but I didn't know how to do a podcast, and I didn't know where to start, and I didn't know how to get the equipment. And there's so many things, but that was on my brain dump too. And I really wanted to create education for people. I wanted to make ebooks. I wanted to have courses. I thought maybe I could even write a book at some point. In this on my brain dump, I'm thinking like, this is like 10 years out there, right? Like, maybe at some point I can do this, but I'm also running a practice and I'm busy. And so I put all this stuff on a brain dump in March, and I'm like, okay, great. It's there. I felt better about it. Right. So feel better about Coach Burke. Poke me. I'm good. So then I go through March, and I'm still kind of content, but I just was like, it was bothering me, like nagging me. I don't know if you guys have ever been convicted of something, but I feel like, I don't know, I was just convicted. Like, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So then for my birthday, end of March, I decided I wanted to go to Miami. and I like Miami. I think it's cool. I'd also kind of been following this guy who was a biohacker on Instagram, and I was kind of like messaging with him. I thought he was super cool. So Dr. D, if you guys know Dr. D, I follow him. He's been on my podcast. I'm kind of messaging him. He's messaging me back. He seems cool. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to Miami, and I'm going to message him when I'm in Miami, and maybe he and I can like meet up, have coffee. I can pick his brain, whatever. Right. So I go to Miami for my birthday, and he actually was like, yeah, come see my office. And I was like, okay, cool. And so I get to go to his office, which I thought was really cool. I met him. I met his wife, Dr. Dalis. If you don't follow her, she's a functional dentist. Amazing. So I go to this guy's office, and it was almost like, I don't know how to describe it to you, but like this in my stomach, there was just like this churning that happened when I walked in the door. And it was almost like everything I put on this paper that I wanted, I like walked into. It's this beautiful modern office. He has got a hyperbaric chamber. He's got a cold plunge. He doesn't have a red light bed, but I mean, he's just got all these amazing things and this amazing team, and it was pretty. And he's telling me about how he takes such good care of patients, and he spends 45 minutes to an hour with them. He sends out all this blood work. He's looking at their epigenetics. He's helping them live better without disease. And I was just like floored. I was like, you can really do this. Like I'm standing here in the flesh. You can do it. Like I almost had goosebumps. And so he was super nice. We ended up doing a podcast, but I remember leaving there and just thinking like, okay, wow, maybe you can really do all this, you know? It's actually possible. And so it was just a really, really cool experience for me, because I had this just like nagging feeling in me about like, you're not doing the right thing. You know, you should be doing something else. But then I had all this negativity of like, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know, you know? And so I left, and he and I stayed in contact, and he was very helpful. Like between him and Coach Burt and some people like trying to figure out my who's and trying to figure out how I can get this to work. But I left thinking, okay, maybe I can do this, right? So now this is the end of March. So I've gone from January, I'm content. Modern Endocrine's just rolling on. We're taking insurance. Nothing's changing. I'm going to spend 15 minutes with you. I'm not going to talk to you about your diet, your gut, anything, but I'm not super happy. To 90 days later, it was like, okay, no, wait, I really want to change. And I really want to do what I think I should do. And oh, by the way, I think I'm going to make a podcast. Because whenever I was in Florida, I had said something about making a podcast, and Coach Burt was like, you need to just make the podcast. Just make the damn podcast, Cassie. Like he said it just so like, you can do it. And then whenever I was with Dr. D, same thing. He's like, Cassie, just make it, just do it. So I come back and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna make a podcast. Like I'm going to do it. And I got this birthday present when I got back from one of my dear patients who also now works with me. And it's probably the best birthday present I've ever had in my life, hands down, whether you're spiritual or not. She got me this book, and it's this book about God given or God, like having time with God every day as a woman. And it's like woman lessons with God, and it's stated. And so she hands me this book on my birthday, right when I get back from Miami. I'm kind of in this like, okay, maybe I can do this. Just anyways, she hands me this book for my birthday present. And I thought, okay, cool, whatever. And I opened the book on my birthday because I'm there. I opened the book to March 26th. And I wish I had it up here. I could go get it. But I opened the page and it literally says on the page on my birthday, it says something to the effect of, you have this conviction. You've been ignoring it for a really long time. God will never force your hand in something that you're not able to do. So stop fighting it and start following your heart. Something to that extent was in this book. And I was just like, I said to the person who gave it to me, I won't say her name, where did you get this book? And she said, well, I was shopping and I knew I wanted to get you something for your birthday. And I had picked up a totally different book and I was on my way out the store. But for some reason, I got this calling to put it down and go back. She said that God told her, put this book down, walk back over there. There's something else I want you to get. She's like, I don't know why. I liked the other book better, but this is the one he told me to bring you. And I said, okay. And she said, why? And I said, no reason. And so I went home and I was like, okay, if you need any other clearer sign, I don't know what it would be. So I took my dog on a walk that night and I told my husband, I said, I'm going to start a podcast. I'm just going to start doing something. And he was like, oh, okay. He kind of looked at me like I was a little crazy, but he was like, okay, fine. And so we got all the stuff, ordered stuff on Amazon, just kind of like figured it out. We had a social media guy at the time who helped us, set it all up in my house upstairs, little area upstairs. And within a week, I was recording a podcast. I don't know that it was the smartest thing I've ever done, but I felt very convicted to do it. And I just felt like I need to do this. So if you listen to my first couple of podcasts, it was me just kind of talking about some different stuff because I thought, oh my gosh, who am I going to get to come on my podcast? What are we going to talk about? Like, but I did it. I just started talking on the podcast, started finding people on social media being that creep, like, hey, will you be on my podcast? But I did it. So I made a couple of episodes. And then I was on a walk the very beginning of April. So now we've moved into April, right? Very beginning of April, still just kind of like in a whirlwind that I started a podcast, knowing that I need to change what I do to practice medicine. 100% know that needs to happen now because of the book and just multiple things. So I am walking my dog, minding my own business, messing around on Instagram, right? I'm not a huge Instagram person, following other people at this point. This person pops up on my Instagram. Her name is Nicole McPherson. If you guys don't know her, she owns Modern Thyroid Clinic. Wonderful human. And she is sitting there talking about thyroid disease. And she's like speaking my language. She's talking about how T3 is important and how people are inflamed and just all of these things that I'm like, she is spot on. Who is she? And she's beautiful. And so I'm like, I have to know who this person is. So I start like following her, looking at all her stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she's not crazy. She's not crazy. She knows exactly what she's talking about. She's talked about it for years. She did a TED Talk. I watched her TED Talk. I was just like mesmerized. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to meet this person. Like she's a woman and she's pretty and she knows what she's talking about. And so she's got all these followers, right? Ton of followers. So I'm like, I'm going to message her and just see if she'd be interested in being on my podcast. Probably not, because I've had 2 podcast episodes air. I have not that many social media followers. She's like this queen social media being, but I'm going to message her anyways, right? Because I was just like, I'm on a high because the book told me to, so I'm going to do it. So I message her in April and I go about my business. And it wasn't even like a day later. I'm not even kidding you guys. She messages me back, kindest words. And she's like, oh my gosh, yes, I would love to be on your podcast. I looked at your content. We're very aligned, yada, yada. And I was like blown away. Like, what? It's like famous person on social media wants to be on my podcast. She's very smart. She's so beautiful. So I was like, this is awesome. Great. Got my first guest, right? So I get this scheduled in April, still moving along in life. Now around this time, I also realized there was a lot of things going south with my practice. I unfortunately had a billing company that wasn't doing a very good job. Hadn't been doing a very good job, but definitely was not. It wasn't going well. They did not have my best interest in mind. They did not have patients' best interest in mind. And so I just decided from a business standpoint, we needed to part ways. Now, this is difficult to do, right? They do my HR, they do my EHR, so my electronic medical records. I'm in their building as a tenant. And so it was probably not going to be great, but I decided that we needed to part ways. And so I decided this towards the end of March. And it was just this feeling that I had, like, you want to talk about a guttural just feeling. And I had told myself in 2024, like, when you have gut feelings, you're going to listen to them. And this feeling was like, this has to happen. So that's never a fun thing to do, but I'm doing that in April too, right? End of March, beginning of April, trying to get all this lined out. Like, what EHR system am I going to use? What am I going to do about my phones? I've got to get my staff moved over, different payroll system, like all these things, while I'm still practicing medicine, trying to see 20 and 25 people a day, trying to pay my bills. Nightmare, just complete nightmare, right? And it was really hard because, like, I have this all going on over here, but then I have this like new world over here where I'm like, oh my gosh, I have this podcast. I'm going to get to meet this cool person. So anyways, this is what April was wild for me. And at the same time, my dad turned 70. And so my dad turned 70. My sister lives in Australia. He wants to go to the Dominican Republic for his birthday. I had said I would go forever. My sister's going to come from Australia. And like right before it's time to go, I'm like, I can't go. Like I can't go. I have so much stuff going on at work. I have so much stuff going on with this podcast. I don't want to mess up this podcast interview with Nicole. Like this might be my chance. So just all these things were happening in April. And I just went from like so content in January and February to like this hot mess stress box in March, April. And so I was like, what am I going to do? And that book, oh my gosh. So I'm reading this book. I read it every morning, and it was like the week before I'm supposed to go to my dad's birthday. And I'm thinking like, I'm just going to cancel. I'm not going to go. There's too many things going on. I'm trying to move my business. My lesson one morning in that book was about how time and memories are so cherishable and how you only get a certain amount of time with your family, especially after you're an adult and your parents and things like that. And how you really have to put some of that noise aside and you really have to focus on things that are really important in your life sometimes. And so I feel like that was God telling me in April, like, you're going to go on this trip. It doesn't matter what's going on with your business. It doesn't matter what's going on with your life. You know, I'm going to stabilize it. You're going to go. So thankfully I decided to go because while I was in the Dominican Republic, my sister got engaged. So that was really awesome. And so I got to spend that time with my family. I come back in April and I do this interview with Nicole. So I'm like super nervous. Again, I'd only had like 2 or 3 podcasts come out. She's got like 200,000+ followers. I have like no one. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she's done a TED Talk. She's so smart. What am I going to talk to her about? Super nervous, you guys. So nervous. Okay. Because just doing a podcast, when you first start, you'll understand it's kind of weird talking to a camera. But I did this podcast episode with her and she was so gracious and she was so kind and it was so awesome. We had a great conversation. It was actually pretty easy for me. It came a lot easier than I thought because I do a lot of speaking and I do a lot of teaching. It was just, I was blown away at how awesome it was. So the interview's over and she just starts talking to me like we've been friends. She's so kind. Like, how's your business? You know, are you happy? Is there anything I can do to help you? And so I'm just like, okay, actually, no, like my business is terrible. I'm in this terrible spot. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm thinking about transitioning. You know, I just like have verbal diarrhea. She's probably like, oh my gosh, hot mess. But I kind of told her everything that was going on and how I felt like I wasn't able to take care of patients and how this transition I'm trying to make where I want to go into actually being able to take care of people. And she was so kind. She said, you know, I've not been taking insurance for a really long time. I have been helping people actually get better and get their lives back. Let me help you. And I was like, what? Like, you don't even know me. And she's like, yeah, but let me help you. Like, she was so sweet. And so that was a really cool, pivotal turning point for me at the end of April. Very stressed, questioning every decision I'd made about my practice. Am I really doing the right thing by leaving this group and trying to go out on my own? You know, all these things. But it was just like, I was getting these little signals along the way that like everything you're doing is right. Right. And when I laid down at night, I knew that that's what I really wanted to do. But it was like, it's just so hard and it's really scary. And so Nicole like kind of took me under her wing. We became really good friends. I feel like she's been my friend forever, although I've only known her for like 8 months. And she was like, call me, like, let's just talk about it. Let me help you figure out how to do it. And so we developed this really cool relationship in April as I transitioned in May into this, you know, new practice type. So that was really good for me because I will tell you on May 1st, when we did the transition, it did not go well. It actually was a complete and utter train wreck, to be honest with you. So the group that I was working with got angry because I refused to sign a document my attorney told me I would not sign. That could be very punitive to me long term. And so they got angry that I wouldn't sign this document and they took away my access to EHR. So they took my electronic health medical record access away just instantly. They took my internet away one day and my phone service in the middle of me seeing patients in clinic. Now that has multiple implications, but number one, to patients' lives. It was very frustrating because I have people who want prescriptions refilled. I have people who are calling that need things, right? So it was a mess. And there was really nothing I could do about it because I was in a building that they owned. You know, it was very difficult. One of the most difficult weeks of my life. And it was hard because I really want to take good care of patients. It was hard on my staff. It was hard on everyone. Like imagine just going to work, if you're a healthcare provider listening to this, and being in clinic with people there waiting to see you, and all of a sudden your phone doesn't work, your fax doesn't work, you can't e-prescribe prescriptions, your EHR doesn't work, and you don't know when any of it's going to come back on, right? Ridiculously mind-blowing. And the fact that somebody could do that to people, also mind-blowing, but I digress. So that happened on like a random Wednesday because I wouldn't sign a document that I shouldn't sign. So we crutched through that for a couple weeks. And it was really hard. I had patients that were really mad. I had staff that were very upset. I lost patients over it. I lost staff over it. And that's a difficult thing because, you know, I'm just trying my hardest, working as hard as I have ever worked or harder to take care of people, to do what I want, to make people better, to make them healthy. And so it was a pretty rough May. Eventually, thankfully, my husband, my attorney, some people got some things worked out. We got a hotspot. Yes, I had to hotspot my clinic because I was renting space from this company. It was a mess. But I got an EHR. I got a hotspot. I got all the things. And so we made it through May. Now, be it wasn't great. And to all my patients that are listening and you stood through that with me, I appreciate you. Most of my staff ended up quitting or leaving or whatnot, which is fine because if that's how you are, then, you know, if you can't have a little bit of bump in the road, I mean, that's fine. Then we take care of people at Modern Endocrine. We have some very complex issues that we address. And so I was okay with all that because I knew God was going to give me the right people. Okay. So the people that did stay, I had a couple core ones that stayed. I was very grateful for that. We got through it. We got everything kind of reset up. But May was one of the most stressful months I've ever had. And in the interim, think about this. I'm also trying to do this podcast. I'm trying to change the way I practice medicine. I'm really trying to make people better, but we got through it. End of May, I go to do some exosome ozone training. So like some just regenerative medicine training in Houston with Dr. Johnny Pete. Phenomenal guy, great provider, so smart, opens up my eyes to things that will help patients. So I do that. I also was so lucky to have been blessed with my nurse practitioner summer. So she came to me through somebody that worked with me named Jessie, one of my RNs, said, hey, there's this nurse practitioner in the ER. She's amazing. You should steal her. She didn't really say that, but so I got summer and she came to me, I think at the beginning or at the end of May, beginning of June. So kind of when all this transition was happening. Such a blessing from God, like amazing human, just like me, so smart, just wants to help people. So that was amazing too. So although May started a complete and utter train wreck, there was light at the end of the tunnel, sort of. I also got Ashley. So I have a a PA as well, Ashley Cotting, and she started around the same time as well. So again, it was rough. I had two providers starting. We're looking at 2 EHRs. Everything's changing. All the policies are changing. Rough month. Fast forward to June. We're trying to kind of stabilize things. My patients are still really mad. The phones didn't work for like a week. You know, people couldn't get their prescriptions. Like people are just mad, and I get it. Not to mention my patients were also mad because their bills had been messed up for months as well. Again, something I could not really do anything about, but in changing that group, I was trying to fix that. June, we kind of stabilized things from a clinical standpoint. I go to training. I went to a peptide conference in Las Vegas to learn about some peptides. Throughout this entire time, I'm really working on my podcast, and I'm really trying to figure out what are we going to do from a provider standpoint at Modern Endocrine to stand out and take really good care of people. So I'm still like reaching out to random people on social media. They're like, who is this crazy girl? Nobody really knows who I am, but I'm like begging people to come on my podcast. Did some awesome interviews. People were so kind. If you go back and listen to the first 15, 20 episodes of my podcast, everyone that came on, rock stars. Thank you all. Great interviews. And again, I didn't really have a huge social media presence. I'm just this crazy endocrinologist from Oklahoma talking about stuff. So June, I'm like, go to this peptide conference, go to this longevity conference. And I'm like, I have to do this. I have to start talking to people about their gut. I have to start talking to them about their insulin. I have to start talking to them about, I've been talking to them about their insulin, but I have to start talking to people about their gut. I have to start talking to people about longevity, about putting this all together, about how your brain and your gut and your hormones are all connected, because I had done this for 7 years and people were getting better, but they weren't great. Like I could fix their hormones. I could optimize their hormones, but there were still people that had symptoms and that still weren't feeling good and still weren't losing weight. And I knew why. There was a gut connection, right? There's a gut connection with everything, but I hadn't went there because I didn't have time and I didn't know how to do it in the 15 minutes I was allotted. But I knew that I was doing a disservice to a lot of patients because until you fix somebody's gut, you cannot fix them. Like it's impossible. Your gut ties back to so many things. So if your gut is leaking inflammatory molecules because you have leaky gut or because you have dysbiosis or overgrowth of bad bacteria, that inflammatory response from leaking or from the bad bacteria causes increase in inflammatory markers in your body, which feeds back to your body and tells your body to be stressed. So your cortisol goes up, your insulin goes up. It decreases how many hormones you make. When your hormones are low, that also decreases digestion. That decreases your ability to make serotonin and dopamine from your gut. So then your mood's going to change. So there's a brain gut feedback. So there's so many things, which by the way, are all going to be in my book. But I was in this place where I was like, I have to start doing this. Like I have to start spending more time with people and addressing this because if I don't, people aren't going to get better. So I learned all these great things in June at this conference. I come back. End of June, we have our annual Modern Endocrine pool party. That was a highlight in June as well. So much fun. So July starts and we do some ozone training. That was exciting as well. Ozone has been such a blessing to my practice and my patients. Talk about changing people's lives. So we do that at the beginning of July. I'm still teaching for a pellet company at this point. I've been doing this the whole year. I was going once a month to Dallas to teach providers about pellets. So I had done it January through July. July, I think, was the last month I did it. So I go and do this in July. We spent some good time with our friends Kayla and Jacob in July. That was fun. I remember that. And then I come back and I decided to change the practice a little bit. A lot to people's dismay, but I had to start somewhere. And so what I wanted to start with was like, hey, I'm not going to take insurance anymore with new patients. That's kind of where we started. Like, no more new insurance patients. Like if you want to come be a part of Modern Endocrine, I want to be honest with you. This is what I want to do. I want this to be a longevity clinic. I want this to be a clinic where we're optimizing you. And I want to do it on our timeline and I want to spend time with you. And I don't want to worry about what your insurance company says, right? I want to talk to you about your gut. I want to talk to you about your diet. I want to talk to you about all the things, stress and sleep. And so in July, we decided that's how I thought I would do it. I'll just start new patients coming, like let them know this is the spiel. This is how we do it. And so we started that in July. I got a lot of negative feedback. I got a lot of pushback from people, a lot of people that were really angry. And I get that. I have people that have been with me for 8 years. I started at Mercy Hospital. I went into private practice at another facility. I'd moved around. And so there were people that were a little upset with that, but you have to do what's best for you. You have to do what's right for you. And I can tell you that my heart told me for years that I wasn't doing what was best for my patients. And so I decided to take the leap and do it. And I did have some people that were angry and that left the practice, but I had a lot of people who stayed. And I hope that the people that did stay are seeing the positive impact that we're having on people by talking about different things and bringing different things to them. So this is July. We start to change the practice. Now, what I didn't tell you was when I decided to leave that group I decided it in March that I had a lease in the building that I was in through November of 24. When I decided to leave that group and not sign the document that they insisted that I sign, that my attorney told me I should not, they gave me a 90-day termination notice on my lease without a proper cause. They just said they had the right to do that because I was leaving the group. So as of May 1st, pretty much May 10th, something like that, they gave me a 90-day termination to my lease. So I also, during May, when all this stuff was going on with the practice, and June and July, I know that like, hey, I have to find somewhere to move. And I knew that my patients were already mad because of what happened in May. I knew that I had already moved twice in 2 years. And so I'm like, if I have to move and then move again, this is just going to be detrimental. I had planned on building a building. I had planned on that for years. I was kind of in the midst of another building thing that had to get ixnayed and tied up. And so that finally did at the beginning of this year, thank God. So early in 2024, when I got out of that deal, I knew I could build my own building finally. And so my husband and I were talking about that, really wanted to build our own building. So we had planned on doing that. And we had acquired a piece of property, perfect location, early March, found the most phenomenal builder in Oklahoma City, Chris Candelaria, amazing guy. And so he had already started building this building for us. Like, we got the property, I think in March, he could probably tell you to be exact, but middle of March, flat piece of property. And so he's in the process of building this building for us, Modern Endocrine, with the known completion time of November to December because I had a lease, right? Well, so whenever I got that 90-day termination in May, I went to Chris and I said, Chris, I need this building to be done in 90 days. And he had been working on it for maybe 45 or 50 at that point. And he basically was like, okay, like just a rock star guy. I kind of told him what was going on. And I'm like, I know you need longer than 5 months to build this building, but I really need this building to be built. And so that was also stressing me out, by the way. And he was like, all right, you got it, Cassie. I'm going to get it built. And so that put a lot of stress on myself in the practice as well as we were kind of transitioning through the summer. I have an 8,700 square foot building that was built from scratch, dirt ground that he had to level. And he made it happen in 5.5 months. So my hat's off to him. But all this was going on while I'm trying to figure all this stuff out with the practice. So July, August, we're still trying to transition all this stuff in August with the practice, trying to become this more holistic wellness practice because I feel like really in my soul, that's what I'm supposed to do. That's what God's telling me to do. That's how I'm going to help the most people, or at least help people the longest, like long term, right? I have Summer and Ashley who I'm training. They're being complete rock stars with this transition and all the, the patients are mad. I think that was the hardest part for me. Patients were so mad. They were mean to my staff. They were mean to my front desk staff. They were mean to my MAs. They were mean to my brand new PA and nurse practitioner. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I remember coming home and thinking, God, like, I'm not going to have any staff left. Like, this is just, it was so hard. It was so hard. And I remember questioning myself a lot throughout this transition. And I also remember in August, end of July, beginning of August, almost being in tears because I was like, if this building doesn't get done and all my staff are upset and my patients are upset, like I just kind of felt like in August, everything was like crumbling, right? But I'm still going to work and I'm still seeing patients and I still have a good mind and I'm trying to be positive. So August rolls around, August 9th to be exact. And Chris got that building done. He got it done and we moved on a weekend and my staff were awesome. They helped pack, they helped move. We were open on a Friday. We saw patients. We moved on Friday and Saturday. We unpacked on Sunday. Had a great moving team, wonderful moving organizing company that helped me. And we saw patients on Monday, August 12th. My kind of dream came true. And telling you this, I almost want to cry. Like, it was wild what happened in 8 months of life, right? Like, I'm writing all these things on this, not even 8 months, 5 months. Like, I do this brain dump after I see Coach Burke, 6 months. All these things that I want to happen with Modern Endocrine. I want this state-of-the-art building. I want to transition to well care. I want to take really good care of people. I want to talk to them about their gut. I want to get providers to help me. I want to get these great staff members on board who really want to care for and take good care of people. I want this building right by my house with all these things. Like, it all just happened. Like, it happened. With the help of so many wonderful people, but it happened. And it was just really awesome. So stressful, so worth it. The whole time this is happening too, by the way, my podcast, I'm not giving up on this podcast. I'm doing a podcast every week. I'm trying to put out good social media content. We started to grow on social media, which was awesome. Started getting all these followers. People were liking our content. And so all these things happened in July and August, which was amazing. And when I stepped foot in that building on August 12th, it was one of the most proudest, just amazing moments I've ever had. Modern Endocrine has a building. We're going to touch so many people's lives. We're going to help them. And we did it. We did it in 6 months with the devil trying every way in the world to make it stop. Every way. I'm going to kick you out of a lease. I'm going to make your transition terrible. I'm going to make people mad at you. I'm going to make your staff all leave. I'm going to have, just every way in the world. But it happened. It happened, and I was so grateful that it happened. And so we get to August. Everything's finally like, I can breathe. Like, oh my gosh, I have somewhere to go. I'm not, scrambling to shut my clinic down for a few weeks. So that was fun. So moving to a new place is always fun too, right? You have to get everything. So my poor staff, like new EHR, angry patients for 2 months. Oh, we finally got everything figured out. Now we're moving. So I was very appreciative of my staff hanging in there. I have great people, but we got moved and it was pretty awesome. What else happened in August? Maddie left me in August. So I had an MA who had been with me for like 4 years. Wonderful girl. Loved her so much. She went to PA school. Could not have been prouder. She left us at the end of August to go to Tennessee. And hopefully she's going to come back and be a PA with us at some point. But she left. And then in September, we were kind of getting our groove on. We've been there in the clinic a couple months. We did go to Cabo in September. Rob and I went to Cabo. That was fun. We went with a couple of our friends who we've become friends with. That was a good time. And while I was there, kind of just thinking about, how we want the clinic to continue to grow, the different things we want to offer, started thinking about maybe we need to do some memberships, put together my 10 stages of ultimate health. So how I really feel like you should treat people, working on trademarking that. It's going to be in the book as well. So September was kind of like a breathe. We made it. Everything's good. Maybe we can get back in that content feeling, right? Still kind of transitioning the practice to more of a cash pay type model, getting out of the insurance realm, doing it kind of slowly, not trying to make all my patients angry, but hopefully helping them realize that, hey, we want to take really good care of you. And we want to do it not based on what an insurance company tells us. I don't want insurance to dictate how I take care of people. So I would say September, while we were in Cabo, feeling better, like, oh my gosh, podcast is going pretty good. Also decided I would do a bioidentical hormone summit. That's going to be a national summit. It's going to come out in April because I didn't have anything going on, right? But I found it to be a good opportunity to help educate people. So I'm kind of starting to work on that in September. I'm already making podcasts, so why not? So I'm in Cabo in September with one of our new friends who is an entrepreneur. And he's kind of pushing my buttons, like Coach Burke. I'm like, what the hell, Chris? Like, he is like, Cassie, what do you want to do with the business? What do you want to do with the business? How do you want to grow the business? He's a great entrepreneur, but he's like telling me I need to read traction and I need to figure all these things out. And if I'm going to take care of all these people and really help, millions of people like I want to, and I have these big goals, I'm going to have to figure all this stuff out. And I'm just like, man, I'm trying to be on vacation and chill and just take a breather. And my friend is sitting here just poking me like, no, you're not, you keep going, And so I was just like, all right, cool. So I do appreciate you though, Chris Dolan. I'm just kidding. So we come back from Cabo and now I have all these things in my head about, okay, well, maybe I need to do this and maybe I need to do that because I'm running all this stuff by Chris and I'm saying, well, this is what I want to do and this is what I want to do. And he's like, yeah, you need to do it. You need to do this. You need to do this. You need to find the right person. So I'm like, okay. So we get back in September and I'm just kind of like, okay, whatever. My husband and I had planned on going to this conference called Mindshare. McCall, my friend McCall had told me about it. She's like, it's great. It will help you with your business. McCall's kind of been helping me with my business throughout the year. She's like, you really need to go there. There's so many great entrepreneurs. You're going to have, all these great ideas. They're going to help you figure out how to take care of more people. Okay. So I'm back home for a couple weeks. Chris is like in my head, like, Cassie, you need to do this. You need to do this. I have all these ideas again. I've brain dumped. Thanks, Coach Burke. Like I've got all my little circles and all my things. So I go to Mindshare at the end of September. Rob and I go, and I got to meet Nicole in person. It was so much fun. So grateful for that. And I get to Mindshare in September, and she's exactly right. There's all these smart people in a room, and they're like, hey, you want to impact millions of people's lives? This is how you do it. Get out a pen. Ready? It's a million things, you guys. Like my anxiety is through the roof again. It's like you need to do this, and you need to do this, and you need to do this, and you need to write a book, and you need to... And I left that conference, and I came home, and I was like, no, like there's no way. There's no way I can do all that. I was just very like, it was a lot, right? I've already got this hormone summit going. I'm trying to do my podcast. I'm still trying to transition my practice. I'm still trying to stabilize everything. But when I was there, they were talking about memberships and how memberships are really good for people because they actually end up doing better. So when you actually have a health membership and you've committed to that membership and you've paid for that membership, it shows that you will actually do so much better with your health because you've already committed, you've already paid, and you're going to have these touch points along the way, right? People are going to help you. They're going to coach you along the way. One of the problems with healthcare is you go see a doctor every 3 or 4 months. You can't fix someone every 3 or 4 months. There's a lot of things that have to happen with health outside of the doctor's office in between visits. Okay. And that doesn't happen when people don't have education and they don't have the tools and resources they need to do that. So they talked a lot about this conference about memberships and how you do that with apps and health coaches and touch points. And so I was like, that's actually really what I want to do. Like, I really want to have health coaches that can talk to people about their food and diet and exercise. And I really want to have an app where people can go on there and it will feed them information, good information every day. And I really do want to make a course where people can just start wherever they are. Like if they need to start at square one and we need to talk about, nutrition 101, or they can start a little bit down the line and we can talk about sleep. And so I went to this conference and I came home with a million other ideas. Like, oh my gosh, there are all these things that we need to do at Modern Endocrine. And I was like almost overwhelmed, but my good friend Nicole, she kind of challenged me and I like it. She said to me when we were at that conference, she said, you just need to go back home and you need to make a membership. So just do it. I was like, okay. So I did it. So I came home and in October, we started offering some memberships. And I wanted to focus on gut health stuff with our patients because gut health is kind of where everything starts in your gut. But now Modern Endocrine has memberships. We have gut health memberships. We have hormone memberships. We have weight loss memberships. We have thyroid memberships. And my point in doing that was to make sure that you get everything that you need for that journey. Like we want to put it all together. We want to encompass it. We want to make sure that you are committed just like we are committed because we are committed to taking really good care of you. But I want you to be committed as well. And so we implemented memberships in October. And the people who have done it have done really well. And I'm still tweaking a few things. I have some exciting stuff coming for the memberships in January, which I'm going to get to. But I think it's been really awesome for us, for patients. I think we've helped a lot of people. In October, we just kind of focused on that. Focused on like, how can we do this? What's the best way to do this? For patients, for staff. I had a medical student come and shadow me in October, Johnny Haddock. Awesome guy. If you don't follow him, look him up. He's doing amazing things in the world for people. Love that. He has cookbooks that he's made. He's helped people lose tons of weight. Just a really, really solid 4th-year medical student who's going to be an awesome doctor. He's not going to be like a traditional medicine doctor. And so I had him in October. I had the pleasure of having him and helping me remember how much fun it can be to like teach people and to really help pull that passion out of people and that drive. And just to remind me there are going to be really great providers in this world. So I had Johnny and he actually inspired me to do a couple things. So I'm kind of mad at Johnny, to be honest with you, because whenever I've been toying around, like I want to write a book for a long time, even in January, but I don't have time, right? I don't have time. I have all these things that are going on. And Johnny came to do a rotation with me for 2 weeks and he was there for about a week. And he said to me something along the lines of, Cassie, what you do here is special. Like it's different. There's not other doctors that do this. I've rotated with people. They don't do this. They don't talk about their gut. They don't talk about food. They don't talk about nutrition. He's like, you need to write a book. And I'm like, Johnny, I don't have time to write a book. And he's like, you need to write a book. You need to write a book. And not only do you need to write a book, but I have a publisher for you because I know the best publisher because I've written books. And I'm like, oh, Johnny. And so I just kind of ignored it. And I went home and that little book that I got for my birthday, and I never cheat, by the way. I don't read ahead. I opened that book the next day. And the title of my lesson the next day was The Storyteller. And it was talking about how when you find the right purpose in life, how it is your goal, your duty, and your job, if God gave you that, to tell the story. To tell the story of what you're really good at to help others. So that was my lesson.
the day after Johnny told me I should write a book. And that was at the end of October. And so I shut that book and I looked up and I was like, I don't have time to write a book. Like, this is not for me. This was not the right page. But he told me again that day, Cassie, you need to write a book. And then I have another patient friend of mine who gave me that book, who said to me that next day, are you ready to write your book? And I was kind of like, what are you talking about? And they said, well, God told me you were going to write a book. He told me I couldn't tell you until you were ready. And I think you're ready. So are you going to write your book? So at the end of October, after Johnny left, I let him introduce me to his publisher. And she's an amazing person, a very sweet lady. And so in November, I decided I'm going to write a book with all the other things I have going on. And I'm going to do that, though, because I have the right people on my team, right? So I'm going to get to this with gratitude, but I've surrounded myself with these people that are just phenomenal. And so in November, I decide I'm going to write a book while I continue to figure out these memberships and do my podcast and get this summit finished and figure out the best way to take care of millions of people and help people realize that your gut is really important with the rest of your body and overall hormones, right? So that was November. November went by pretty quickly, but I did get finalized, somebody to write the book. We made an outline, all the things. So Johnny, thank you for that. And then for Thanksgiving, we went to Cabo. My husband and I always go to Cabo. Magical time. Pedregal, beautiful. My dad came, thankfully, his wife. So we got to spend some time with them, and it was amazing. I needed that for my soul, and I love spending time with my dad, especially as he gets older. It's really just good for my soul. So we did that, and then we came back, and the year's kind of wrapping up. There are some things that I knew I wanted to do. I'm looking for a couple more people on the Modern Endocrine team. I'm looking for the right people. I think I've found 2 of them. I'm still looking for maybe 1 or 2 more. But, December has just been about kind of trying to get everything stabilized and finalized for the year, finishing up the Hormone Summit, making sure my podcasts are good. I have decided to switch some stuff with the podcast. So I had a meeting about this today. The podcast is probably going to get a new name. I'm going to get a new publisher of the podcast, and we're going to try to do some really cool stuff with the podcast. So the podcast for 2025, I think will be changing, and it will be for the better, and it will be amazing. I'm hoping that it reaches more people so we can help more people. I'm going to finish up the book in 2025. I don't know when. I had originally said it was going to be done by April. I'm finding that it's a little bit harder to write all the things I want to write in the way that I want to write them, but I'm going to finish it. I'm not going to stick to that strict timeline because I want it to be really good for you guys. But the book will get done in 2025. So I'm so excited about that. We're going to talk about the gut hormone connection. And I really wrote this book, and I'm writing this book for all you people who listen to this who don't feel good, who are maybe normal but not optimal, who have seen doctors and have been told, you're fine, you're normal, that's part of aging, who know something's wrong and have seen doctors and just cannot find a provider to put everything together for you from the cellular level, cells, gut, hormone, all of it. I'm writing this book for you people, for all of you who just really want that why. Why are you sick? What is causing you to not feel well? What is the root cause? That's why I'm writing this book. And so it's all here, and it just needs to go here. It's harder than you would think. But I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do a really good job for you guys. And in doing that, I'm hoping in 2025 that we do a TED Talk about the book. And I'm hoping that we have some courses available for people. So I'm going to go a little bit more in depth with some of those courses and providers as well. Some more of my goals for 2025 is to get a health coach for Modern Endocrine. And I think I've found a phenomenal person, and she's going to help me develop an app. So all of our patients are going to have an app that they can work through to help them through their fitness journey and their health journey. And she's going to be really an integral part of our gut stuff that we do at Modern Endocrine. She is amazing. So I'm so excited that she's starting. So those are the main things for 2025. The Hormone Summit will come out. I'm going to keep giving you guys the podcast. I'm going to turn it up with the social media content too. I have an amazing marketing team that's been helping me. Our newsletters, where I really want to educate people. So the education that you will get from us is going to change. If you're not signed up for our newsletter, you need to be. We have some amazing, amazing things that we educate you on. There's a cadence to it. You will learn if you're just signed up for our newsletter. So if you want to be signed up for our newsletter, go to our website. Like I said, my marketing team, Courtney, does a phenomenal job with those newsletters. She puts a lot of work into them, so you should read them. And if you're signed up and you're not getting them, look in your spam folder, because I'm not sure why some of them go to spam. But that's kind of 2024 in a nutshell. So when I think about all the things I want to do for 2025, I just listened to you. I want to write a book. I want to fix my podcast, to do some different things. I want to have a course available. I want to get an app made. I want a health coach. Like, these are some big things, right? And so it's really easy for me to look and go, man, I have all this stuff I need to do for 2025. I didn't get anything done for 2024. But that would be living in the gap and not the gain. And so I choose to live in the gain, which is, man, modern endocrine has killed it for 2024. And although I am so excited for 2025, look at all we've done in 2024. So to my patients and my staff and my family and my husband and my friends and all the people that have been on my side and in my corner, I have so much gratitude for you. And I'm so thankful for you, for being my cheerleader, for supporting us, for telling people about us, because I know it's been a bumpy year, but we have taken really good care of a lot of people. I could almost cry every day when people tell me, like, I have patients every day that say, you've changed my life. I feel so much better. I've never felt better in my life. Like, just the stories that I hear make it all worth it, right? I work a lot. I'm really stressed, but it's all worth it. So when it comes to gratitude, my staff, my patients, my family, anyone who's helped me with this transition, thank you so much. My marketing team that I've had, Daphne, Courtney, Caitlin, you guys are solid. I love you all. Dr. Talks has helped me with the Hormone Summit, and they were helping me with the podcast. So they have been very helpful as well. Just anyone who's helped me through all of this, I appreciate that. My friends who reach out, McCall, you've changed the trajectory of modern endocrine, because you have made me believe in myself and made me believe that so many awesome things could happen. And I love being surrounded by people like you. You make me want to be better, and you make me want to take care of people better. And so I appreciate that. Dr. D has been helpful as well, and his wife. And also my therapist, Jan. Love Jan. You guys know Jan. She helps me keep a solid head on my shoulder. I've had a pretty rough year. She was always there to listen whenever I need anything, even emergencies. I had to emergency call her today. It was just for like 10 minutes, but I needed her to help put my head back on. And so I'm so grateful for Jan. And yeah, I mean, I think that's it. I just wanted to give you guys a little recap as how I do that every year. And so do that. Take some inventory. Take some inventory about what you did. Go through it in your head. Look at your folder, or look through your phone and your folders. Make a list of the things you're the most proud of. Make a list of the things that you're the most grateful for. Make a list of the things you want to accomplish next year, but make sure that you live in the gain and not the gap. And so I would say, as far as being proud, I'm the most proud that I finally listened to my gut. And I feel like I'm taking care of people the way I'm supposed to, which is not by letting insurance dictate how I do it. So I sleep really good at night. I'm very proud of the fact that we have a really good team at Modern Endocrine. It has been a struggle. If you're my patients, you know, staff, it's been a struggle. Everyone that works there now is solid, and I have really good people, and I am so grateful for that. I am super grateful and just very proud of our building. My husband did a great job with our builder, Chris, getting it built. It's beautiful on the inside. It's very functional. So I could not be prouder of that. I love the podcast. And I'm really looking forward to having some things to be proud of in 2025 as well, including the book. So I'm probably the most excited about the book, because I think it'll be able to reach so many people, validate so many people, and help actually educate people and help them figure out what the root cause is of how they feel. So the other thing I'm going to put on here so that I'm held to it, one of my other goals for 2025 is to be kinder to myself. And so I am going to take one day off every week. I'm going to not work one day every single week next year. I promise that. So I'm going to pick a day and I'm going to do yoga and I'm going to go for walks and I'm going to take naps and I'm going to listen to myself, because I definitely didn't do that this year as well as I did in 2023. So I would say that my health has suffered a little bit this year. Although I'm still very healthy, I'm going to make sure and put it back to where it's supposed to go. My cortisol is going to go down. Everything's going to be great. But I am going to do that for myself. So I've got big goals, but I've got the right people on my team and in my corner. So make sure that you surround yourself with those people. And please make sure, if you enjoy this podcast and all the time and effort that goes into it, that you like, subscribe, and follow. Send it to people, whoever. I know you know people that would help. So send it, share it. Make sure you're following us on social media, and stay tuned for a pretty wild 2025, because I have no doubt that our gain for 2025 is going to be way higher than it was for 2024. And I'm so proud and happy to be doing this with all the people that work with me, with my husband, with my friends, and with all of you who are helping make this dream a reality. Have a good year.
The information presented, including any materials discussed, referenced, or linked within this podcast, are for general educational purposes only, not the practice of medicine. No doctor-patient relationship is formed from you listening to this podcast or utilizing any of the information provided. I am a doctor, but I am not talking to you as your doctor. The information provided is not intended to diagnose or treat health problems, or take the place of the professional medical care provided by your doctor. If you are experiencing any health problems, including problems you believe have been touched upon in any respect within this podcast, you should consult your doctor about the problems without delay. You may ask your doctor whether he or she believes the information I have provided would be helpful to you, but you should still consult your doctor immediately and follow his or her medical advice as your treating physician. I'm just here to provide you basic knowledge about the issues we discuss so you are more aware of them and can better discuss them with your doctor. That's why we call it Back to the Basics. Join me on the next episode as we continue our journey.